Parshas. This week's Parsha begins the cycle of the Torah anew. It happens to come on the heels of the events of this past Shabbos, tragic events, and we pray for the welfare of the people who are injured in the attacks, people who were taken hostage and who are still held in Gaza, and for the welfare of the soldiers who are fighting for Israel. In this week's Parsha, in Perek Aleph, Posuk Lamed Aleph, that's 131, the Torah says, this is at the conclusion, it's right before the summation, it's right before the Vayachulu, which the Torah says is kind of the wrap-up of creation and a description of the Shabbos day, the day of the Sabbath. So here in Posuk Lamed Aleph, that's 131, the Torah says, Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa. God saw everything that he had done. V'hinei tov ma'od. It was very good. Vayira vayvoker yom hashishi. And it was night and it was morning on the sixth day. What is tov ma'od? In the previous days, when the Almighty is reflecting on his creation, it says, for example, first day, Vayar Elokim es ha'or ki tov. Hashem saw that the light was good. And then he doesn't say it on the second day. He doesn't make a comment of good because the melechas hamayim, the work of the water, had not yet been completed, but he catches up on day 3. So it says, Vayar, it says in verse 10, it says, God called the dry land, and he called the seas. Vayar Elokim ki tov. Again, Vayar Elokim ki tov. Then further on, it says, after creating vegetation that brings forth its like kind, Vayar Elokim ki tov. Anyway, ki tov, ki tov, ki tov. And now we see over here, it says, Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa v'hinei tov ma'od. And it was very good. What's very good about the sixth day, that any more so than any of the other days? Well, some say it's because man was created, and that's the whole purpose of the world is for man. Man was not created for the earth. The earth was created to support man. And so when man is created, then finally he's the capstone, the crown jewel, if you will, of creation. And as a result, now everything is tov ma'od. There are others, Ibn Ezra, others who say that although the Almighty had observed that each element that he had created on the previous days, 1 through 5, were good, ki tov, but the fact that the individual components are good does not mean that the sum total of the aspects of creation and the way they integrate works. You could have perfect parts to an automobile, to a piece of machinery, to a watch, but if they're not assembled properly and if they don't work in coordination, then it's a malfunctioning device or not a device at all. And here, Kadosh Baruch Hu is observing that it was tov ma'od. A recurring theme based on Medrash is a bunch of things that we would consider to be negative: death, the Yetzer Hara, Satan, and those are referred to as tov ma'od. Ma'od, sometimes I believe it probably, when they say ma'od is maves, it probably is a word association. Mot means death, the death of ma'od. In any event, the Meforshim explain, the commentaries explain, that both death and the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, are those things that motivate people to accomplish on this earth, and it enables renewal. So while death is painful, and it's not something we strive for, but in the big picture, it helps contribute to the goodness of this world. That's a very difficult concept to understand. Also, the Yetzer Hara. It says if it weren't for the Yetzer Hara, for the evil inclination, we'll call it, men wouldn't marry, they wouldn't have children, the world wouldn't continue to function in the way we know it. So that's another aspect of Ma'od. Now, Rabbi Yitzchak Karo, I saw this in this Sefer Shari Aaron, he says that Tov Ma'od, what's Ma'od about the sixth day of creation, is indeed that man was created, but was created with the potential to grow. In other words, man was not created bishlemus, in a state of perfection, and he can go either way. he can either become very good, in which case he exceeds the standard of humanity, or he can be, says Rabbi Yitzchak Karo, he can be very bad and can be below even the animals. And regrettably, we've seen that kind of action this past week, where people can act in a way that some might call bestial, and some might call even sub-bestial. So what do we do about that? Well, there are all kinds of responses that are appropriate under the right circumstances. Not everybody can take all of those responses, but we individually can be, ought to be responsible for our own responses. And our own responses are to fulfill the ma'od and to exercise our power of shleimus and to not be the victims of our physical limitations, not to be bound by the lack of imagination, but rather to aspire for greatness, because we can achieve great things, and that's baked into the Tov Ma'od. One response to the events of this past week, I'm recording, this may be viewed later, but I'm recording in the week of following October 7th, 2023. But this applies universally. Is to one approach is to say, okay, I'm going to notch up my game. I'm going to do better spiritually. How do we do better spiritually? Take something and rise above your natural routine. I'll just share what I've been doing this past week. I started studying Psalms, Tehillim, and one chapter a day, but studying it in a way that I can be relatively confident, maybe perhaps with a little bit of repetition, that I understand precisely the meaning of every word and every verse. And if I do a new parak each day, a new chapter each day, then in about a half a year, God willing, I will have mastered not just another book of Tanakh, but the Sefer Tehillim, the book of Psalms, which is so central to our prayer. Some people are upping their game on Shabbos, accepting Shabbos early, studying the laws of Shabbos. Others are helping others in need. Bein adam l'chaviro. They're finding people, seeking out people who need assistance, and instead of waiting to become notified, is to probe and to find out. Call somebody who has lost somebody, whether it's recent or in the past, and just say, I'm thinking of you, and I just wanted to wish you a good Shabbos. These things don't have to take a lot, but they are upgrades in our spiritual lives. And that's a fulfillment of the Tov Ma'od in the Torah, that man was created without shleimus, without completion, without perfection. And we always strive for it. And that, from a spiritual perspective, is the response to those who act in a way that is subhuman, is subbestial. We will strive to be superhuman, perhaps striving even to be angelic, so that we can all be Tov Ma'od. Very good. Have a good Shabbos.